Welcome, everyone. This is Joe Dagger, the host of the Business 901 podcast. With me today is Ruud Janssen. He is a Switzerland-based entrepreneur that has been an innovator and game changer in the hospitality and meetings and event industry since 1994. You're showing your age there a little bit, Ruud. He is a founder of EventCanvas.org Foundation and Event Model Generation, an event design consulting and training firm aimed at creating a common language for meetings and events. Ruud, thanks for joining me and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Joe, for this initiative. I truly appreciate it.
Well, I guess before we get started with your new book, okay, which really is an interesting compilation, okay, but and your accompanying platform, which we'll get into later, we might need just to start with defining the word event, okay, because I think that might have a pretty wide meaning. What's an event?
Oh, don't get me started, Joe. So in our definition, an event is anything that involves at least two stakeholders, and it is something that changes behavior. Okay. Now, some people have, so when we think of events, we think of typically the events that you think about in terms of, product launches or association events or trade shows or, governmental events that take place. But many people that have used the event canvas have told us, well, it's all about behavior change. It's all about two stakeholders or at least two stakes. Could it just be something you use when looking at an interaction between a person and a machine as well? And so people have challenged the boundaries of how it can be used. I think we've designed it initially for the typical event in its definition of having groups of people together at a specific place and time and having them interact. So it could be anything from Elsa's 7th birthday all the way through to the Nuclear Security Summit or anything in between.
Well, the immediate thought of most, okay, to think of the book, the Event Design Canvas, we'll compare it to Osterwalder's business model canvas, right? I mean, where does it differ and what are the similarities, just to get past that, okay?
Great. That's interesting. I first met Alex Osterwalder in 2010 when the association I was on the board of, called Meeting Professionals International, had a board meeting just before one of its major events called the World Education Congress. And Alex came in and talked to our board about the Tower of Babylon and how businesses create value. And the business model canvas was in its early stages then and just being published in the book. And it dawned upon me that being able to articulate how a business creates value on a single piece of paper, taking away the blah blah, and having, well-founded discussions around very specific cubicles of information is actually a very powerful tool. And it wasn't until a couple of years later when, we'd met a couple of times, and when Alex hosted his Business Design Summit in Berlin in 2013, I had lunch with him a couple of weeks before. His promise was more learning in 2 days and the rest of your year. And I swiped my credit card and paid 2,000 euros and decided to go together with a colleague, Rolf Vissen, who was one of the co-founders and co-creators of the Event Canvas. Really hadn't published a program yet at that stage. And when I had lunch with him a couple of weeks before, I could see that deer in headlight look in his eye of the sheer terror of owning an event, right? An event owner, somebody that says, I'm going to do an event, has this drive and enthusiasm and a conviction that an event is going to deliver something in some way from people that go to that event. And at the same time, after having said you're going to do an event, then you start realizing all the different stakeholders and stakes that are involved, right? So in his case, it was the event owner himself, the speakers at the event, the participants who pay to go to the event, but also those that are the vendors in creating the event in itself, and maybe the sponsors that support it financially and have a stake in getting exposure to that specific part of the audience. And it was interesting that, at the time we said, well, we're not going to help you at this stage, just go do the event because you guys are going to do great. It didn't help him. He was actually quite upset because the event disrupted his company, the flow of his team, because it sucked away a lot of attention from his team. And so we said, okay, carry on. And then after the event, we're happy to give you our perspective on how your event went through the lens of people that are experienced in the events industry. And that's when we tested a lot of our thinking on his team. So it was a great way to kind of exchange our expertises and prototype new versions and test our thinking on them. And they should bullet holes into our canvas at the time. And we helped each other to actually get it to the level where it is now. So his event was a call for toolsmiths. Create visual templates that you can use in your business line that will allow people to have sensible and very high-level, good strategic conversations about what innovation looks like in your field of expertise. And actually, the outcome, this book and the EventCanvas.org Foundation and Event Model Generation as a training and consulting firm are actually, catalyzed by actually seeing this other development happening, seeing how people pick that up, and actually taking the good thinking from that and applying it in a different industry. The best outcome of that event is that it's created more clarity in how events are designed, and actually is now building businesses and building services and training around people wanting to do this in this specific way.
So what's unique about the canvas? Why should I use a canvas rather than just having my little, binder over here to take care of it?
Yeah, great point. So I see creating an event, just like creating a business, but I think an event even more so. An event can be considered like a temporary business, but it's also quite a bit more. When you put together an event, it takes a little village to pull off an event, right? It's not something you do on your own. And this is why we say event design is not a solo sport, right? You need to bring in different perspectives of different people as you think through the event design. Now, when you do that, each of us brings in their prefrontal cortex, and we have this experience simulator, which allows us to kind of think forward, right? So based on your experiences, Joe, and based on my experiences or somebody else that we would pull into our event design team, we would be thinking on behalf of what does the event owner want, what does the participant want, what does the speaker want, what does the sponsor want, and they each have quite selfish ways in which that event is going to create value for them. And what we do as a result of the process of the event canvas is that we isolate each of these perspectives very specifically. We use our collective brain power to think on behalf of that person. And we tend to use empathy mapping, something developed by Explain, Dave Gray, as a way to articulate or to extract behaviors. When a team is able to identify how one group enters the event and how different their behaviors when they exit the event, if you can actually articulate that very specifically, you have the beginnings of a good event design. The problem is very often people get distracted by all sorts of things around events, don't think on behalf of a very specific stakeholder. And so the canvas allows you to go through a very systematic stepped approach of 1, designing the desired behavior change, 2, framing the design problem, and 3, then articulating what the event design actually looks like. So for us, the logic of having a chronologic sequence from entry of the event to exit of the event, having restrictions of budgets maybe, and of time that people want to spend at the event, what they expect in return of attending the event, maybe revenues that need to come out of the event, and how it gets jobs done and delivers the promise of the event. To us, that is a very important thing to have a common understanding about that prior to starting the execution and delivery of an event, which usually causes problems. If you haven't thought of the design up front and you're basically starting to build the event and try to figure out what it's all going to be about as you go along, it's going to be a messy affair. And the chances of things going sour are pretty substantial.
I could go on and on. Love the material. Okay, enjoy it tremendously. Tell someone where they can go to learn more, connect up with you, find the book.
Excellent. So it's very simple. EventCanvas.org is where you will find everything. There's a gallery of event designs as examples. You'll see the book there that you can download the first 100 pages for free. And you can also order the book if you like those first 100 pages. The book comes with a whole batch of online resources that you can use as well with your team, that you can print out, different posters and additional materials, diagnostic tools. We deliver training, so you'll find that on the site as well. There's a certificate in event design program we do as an in-company or at universities like the University of Amsterdam or San Diego State University. We speak and engage with teams in both open trainings and in company things across the world. So you'll see a listing there of where we're hanging out. And if we're in your neck of the woods, give us a shout. Or if we're not, then bring us over or reach out to us online. It's either Rolf Visse, Dennis Lyer, or myself, Ruud Janssen. Reach any of the three of us. We're a very small, agile group of people.
This podcast will be available in the Business Design 101 iTunes store and the Business Design 101 blog site, and I encourage you to take a look at the EventCanvas. Okay, thank you very much, Ruud.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, everyone, for listening.